Until I took my life science class in 7th grade, I only considered that my black hair, dark brown eyes, flat feet, and my blood type were all determined by God alone. I had literally asked 100 times, "Mommy, where did I come from? Why do I have black hair when you have brown curly hair? Why do I have brown eyes when you have black eyes? Why is my blood different from yours?" I thought every family member was supposed to have everything mommy and daddy have. She had answered to me back every time, "You have different things because God made you different. He loves you that way." Science tells us that genes are not only the primary responsible agents that determine our traits given to us by our parents, but they are also specific sequences of nucleotides in DNA or RNA, which are located usually on a chromosome, and is the functional unit of inheritance controlling in the transmission and expression of one or more traits gifts by specifying the structure of a particular polypeptide, and especially a protein, or controlling the function of other genetic material. It usually wasn't something that was able to be controlled or manipulated until 1974. Thanks to modern technology, our global society has been advancing on modifying genetic material and producing new species. Such advancements include CRISPR, or clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, methods to alter a gene of a mosquito larvae to prevent it from transmitting parasites that deliver diseases to human beings. Other advancements include identification of genetic alterations that could reduce pesticide resistance, affect the population of an unwanted species, and hinder the reproduction of species. Some may even revive extinct species. But despite of these accomplishments, what are the possible risks of genetic engineering? This is not an easy question. The answer depends on the comprehension of complex biological and ecological systems. So far, scientists and professionals have not confirmed of any actual genetic harms associated with genetically engineered organisms. For instance, it is false that all genetically engineered products are toxic or are likely to ruin the environment. But specific organisms may be harmful because of their specific gene combinations they possess. The risks may differ from one organism's gene combination to another. Although scientists may not have confirmed legitimate adverse effects of genetically engineered organisms on human health and the environment, they have identified possible ways that they could prove adverse effects towards the human health and the environment. Once the actual confirmations have been made, the question falls into how likely these adverse effects may occur. We will first discuss possible health issues caused by genetically engineered organisms. Here are some possible adverse effects of the genetically engineered organisms may have on human health and well-being. Most of them are associated with the production and consumption of GMOs, or growth-modified organisms. Now, raise your hands. How many of you guys eat corn, soybean, papayas, or cereals often? Yes, this includes mommy, daddy, granny, gramps, uncle, aunt, and cousins. Do not raise your hand if you eat every 2 weeks or later. You do not count. Well, unfortunately I count because I eat cereal every day. Most corn, soybean, and papayas produced in the US contain GMOs. Popular packaged commercial products such as cereals and soda have high chances of containing GMOs. The more you consume these products, the more you are consuming GMOs. Different risks would be associated with genetically engineered animals, apart from genetically engineered plants, and would depend on the new traits introduced into either genetically engineered organism. Number one is new allergens in the food supply. How many of you children are not allowed to go to a Halloween party because you are allergic to candy and chocolate? One of the main problems with genetic engineering is associated with the introduction of new allergens. Genetically modified crops could possibly bring new allergens into foods that specific sensitive individuals would not be able to identify to avoid. An instance is transferring the gene from one of many allergic proteins found in peanuts into other vegetables such as tomatoes. Parents who know to avoid giving sensitive children peanuts would not know to avoid giving them tomatoes as well. This is a problem to genetic engineering because it itself can transfer allergens across species boundary into totally unrelated organisms. Scientists currently don't have enough data and have limited ability to predict whether a specific protein will be allergic if consumed by humans. The only accurate way to determine whether the protein is allergic is through experience. Thus, genetically importing proteins from a non-original food source is a gamble to human health. Number 2 is antibiotic resistance. Most genetically engineered plant products contain fully functioning antibiotic resistance genes. The presence of those genes in food products may have harmful effects. First, consuming these foods may possibly reduce the effectiveness of antibiotics that help fight certain diseases when these antibiotics are taken with meals. Antibiotic resistance genes produce enzymes that are responsible for the destruction of the antibiotics in the stomach, thus preventing any effects of the antibiotic. If it is taken at the same time you're eating the food containing antibiotics resistant genes. Second, the resistant genes are transferable to humans or animal pathogens, and if they do so, they may aggravate the health problems of an antibiotic-resistant disease organism. Although doing so without organism is difficult, there is a slight possible chance that it could. Number 3, enhancements of the environment for toxic fungi. While the most part of the health risks caused by genetic engineering associated with adding new extra genetic material, some are associated with deleting or turning off genes. For example, genetic engineering might be used to decaffeinate coffee beans by removing genes associated with caffeine production, but caffeine protects the coffee beans against fungi. Beans that are not able to produce caffeine are vulnerable to fungi, which can produce toxins that are malevolent to human health. So for those of you who consume or drink coffee daily, you might have to compensate it for your health. Now that we have covered some of the major possibilities of genetic engineering causing problems to human health, we will also cover environmental consequences caused by genetic engineering. Number 1 for environmental consequences is increased weediness. For our farmers and mothers, how many of you guys are tired and annoyed constantly pulling out weeds that are destroying and dominating your garden and field? One of the major problems in genetic engineering to the environment is that they may possibly produce weeds. Weeds are plants in places where people don't want them to grow. They include, but are not limited to, kudzu blanketing trees, Johnson grass, and melaleuca trees. In every case, these invasive plants grow unaided by people and often produce unwanted effects in their environment. In unmanaged and unaided environments, such like Everglades or the Amazon, these invasive plants and trees may upset the whole ecosystem and disrupt the already existing natural flora. Number 2, change in herbicide usage patterns. Because of the increasing population of unwanted weeds, changes in chemical herbicide production may be necessary globally. The chemical herbicides differ in their environment, and they may cause even more greater levels of harm towards the environment. In addition, the widespread usage of herbicide may even possibly lead to evolution of plants and weeds that are resistant to herbicides. So, our final issue or consequence of the environment by genetic engineering is poisoned wildlife. Addition of new genes into plants and animals may have serious consequences for wildlife. For instance, engineering crops such as tobacco rice or corn to produce pharmaceuticals could endanger animals who depend on such crops after harvesting. Fish that have been genetically engineered to contain metal-resistant proteins may be harmful to birds and other organisms who depend on those fish for food and consumption. For those of you who are determined to become future scientists or environmentalists, consider the following question I conclude with. Is genetic engineering in general a moral thing to do? If yes, is there a safer method to test those genes without accidentally distributing them out into the public or nature? So, I wish and cheer for a better world and environment. Thank you very much.